You're listening to Forge Theater Labs.
Where does that idea come from?
A podcast devoted to exploring theater history.
Is anything that original?
Concepts and storytelling.
Isn't that just an assumption?
And the creation of theater from behind the scenes.
How do they even do that?
This is Forge Theater Labs.
History, innovation, perspective.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Forge Theater Labs. I'm Joshua Hsu, your host, and I'm so excited to host one of our first roundtables for our podcast for Season 0. And this podcast is going to be focused on dramaturgy. We're really interested in exploring how we can leverage dramaturgy within theater, even more so than we already have been using for the past decade. And so tonight, we have a roundtable of dramaturgs. I'm so excited to introduce them all. First up, we have John Patrick Bray. John Patrick Bray is a playwright, indie screenwriter, scholar, and former literary manager for New York City's Rising Sun Performance Company. He has an MFA in playwriting from the Actor Studio Drama School at the New School and a PhD in theater from Louisiana State University. He's a professor in the Department of Theater and Film at the University of Georgia, where he serves as graduate coordinator and head of the PhD program. His interests include new playwright development and production of off-Broadway history and Greek theater. Welcome, John.
Thank you very much. And just a quick amendment, it's geek theater that I like.
Oh, geek theater.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
Not at all.
Absolutely. Either way, very similar. Thanks for the correction.
Yeah.
I can't wait to help you have me define what geek theater is in a moment.
Sure.
Also with us is Andrew J. Henkes. Andrew J. Henkes is a theater artist and scholar living in Santa Fe, New Mexico. As the co-founder and producer of Apartment 3F, he produced over 40 shows, including The Complete History of Drag and a Few Momo 2017 to 2019, Yes Sir, Stories in Leather in 2016, and Drag Diaries in 2015. For West Hollywood's One City, One Pride, Apartment 3F created Art Out in 2016, This Is Your Life in 2015, A Midsummer Afternoon's Queer Wedding Reception in 2014 with Planet Queer, and the main stage at Install WeHo in 2012 and 2013. Selected directing credits include First Elders at the Hollywood Fringe Festival in 2014, Cheap Theatrics, a celebration of Robert Patrick in 2014, The Spickner Spin at Fringe NYC in 2004, Kaddish in East Jerusalem at the Theater for the New City in 2003, Meaningless Sex at Fringe NYC in 2003, and Love's Labor Lost for the Glasgow West End Festival in 1999 with Steve Bottom. Andrew is also the writer of our third episode, Dangerous Art, Plato v. Sydney. Welcome, Andrew.
Very excited to join you all.
Next up, we also have Dr. Janna Segal. Dr. Janna Segal is an associate professor at the University of Louisville's Department of Theater Arts. At University of Louisville, she has dramaturg productions of The Love of Three Oranges, Much Ado About Nothing, Blood at the Root, Twelfth Night, Love Among the Ruins, Refashion, Fires in the Mirror, Taming of the Shrew, Eurydice, and Baltimore. Recent dramaturgical work in Louisville includes Romeo and Juliet at the Commonwealth Theater Center and Dragon Soul Offline and the Theater for Everywhere project for Stage 1 Family Theater. Dr. Segal is also a playwright specializing in adaptation. With Idris Goodwin, she co-adapted Maya Angelou's I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings for the New York City Children's Theater in 2022. Her adaptation of Midsummer was produced at Ball State University in 2023. Her research on Shakespeare and on dramaturgy has been published in the review The Journal of Dramaturgy, STC Journal, JEMCS, Shakespeare, and various anthologies, including Dramaturgy and History, Staging the Archive in 2024, and Performances at Court in Shakespeare's Era in 2019. Dr. Segal is the resident dramaturg of the Comparative Drama Conference's New Play Staged Reading Series and a dramaturg for the ATHA's New Play Development Workshop. She's also a member of LMDA. Welcome, Janna.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Last but not least, we have Alicia Tycer. Alicia Tycer is a playwright, actress, and theater scholar who teaches at Cal State University, Los Angeles. She received her PhD in drama and theater from UC Irvine and her MFA in television, film, and theater from Cal State LA. Her playwriting credits include Lysistrata, a reimagining for unknown artists at Grove Theater Center in collaboration with Framework Theater Project. The Civil War, a tragicomedy for John's New Line Play Festival, HUAC at Los Angeles Theater Center, This Is How It Ends at Boston Court, and Dreaming of Women at Celebration Theater. She has collaborated on Writing Space, The Final Frontier, at South Coast Rep, and at Sons of Semele, and Embers, Ashes, and This Land at Circle Squared Collective. She was a librettist and dramaturg for The Wall, a musical-minded project at CSULA, and her acting credits include Last Summer at Bluefish Cove, Stella Adler Theater, Transme, Los Angeles at Theater Center, the Laramie Project at Cap Studio Theater, and the Vagina Monologues at the Ensemble Studio Theater. She's worked as a dramaturg for numerous productions, most recently for Moving Arts. Publications include Continuum, Modern Theater Guide, Carol Churchill's Top Girls, and an article of Sarah Kane's work for Theater Journal. Alicia is also our writer of our second episode of our season, so we welcome Alicia again.
Thank you for having me, Josh.
Thanks so much for all being here. I'm excited to jump into discussion. This often comes up, I think, a lot of times with my friends who are not in theater. They generally ask me, what is a dramaturg? The hell are you talking about? What is that? And I think it's sort of a fun conversation because they're really surprised. Generally speaking, I find that they're like, oh, I thought that was just the director. It's so interesting to note, at least in the American consciousness, that the dramaturg is really a new idea. I think to kick things off, I would like to ask all of you, how would you define a dramaturg? And we'll start with Andrew. How would you define what a dramaturg does?
I like to think of the dramaturg a bit similar to a designer, where it's someone, an artist, a thinker who's brought in to really focus on one aspect, and then to help bridge that piece together with the director's vision, with what the playwright has offered, and then all the other work. I also like to in play call it the best friend, everyone's best friend on the production, because it's the person you can kind of go to when you need to talk through an idea in some way and try to figure it out. But fundamentally, it's the historian, the literary expert, the person there to help bridge the context of the text for the other artists who are working on the production.
So interesting. I love that idea of the dramaturg as a bridge between things. Janna, any thoughts on your end? How would you define it?
Yeah, it's a great question and fundamental question, right? I think, especially when you're dealing with production dramaturgy or dramaturgy on a set text, that it's really a mediator between the text and the director's vision of the text, and helping to facilitate an ongoing dialogue between those two, in order to also at the same time advocate for the story and for the audience, right? So you're so much looking holistically about what are all the elements of the story that's going to be told on stage via this text, via this director's vision of the text for this particular audience at this particular time and place. And then when you're working in new play dramaturgy, you know, you're advocating really also for the playwright, right? Primarily for the playwright and their vision that they're trying to communicate through the stage itself. So that, I think, is how I would define it. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, so many of us are playwrights. John, you're a playwright, and you've obviously worked with dramaturgs as a playwright. How would you define what the role of a dramaturg is within that context?
You know, it's funny because I always say that the role of a dramaturg is to tell people what the role of a dramaturg is. And so, just for the new play context, to sort of echo what Janna just said, it's someone who is advocating for the script as well as the playwright. And sometimes in the private conversations with a dramaturg, between the dramaturg and playwright, the dramaturg asks questions that hopefully they're not necessarily leading questions, but they're questions about clarity. Because sometimes the playwright will think they've done something very clear on the page, and it's not quite there. So you keep asking questions to help them get to a structural answer. But again, it's not a. The trick is it's not a process of trying to rewrite the play the way that you feel it should be. It's just to make sure the playwright's intent is being presented truthfully and clearly through the words on the page.
What a wonderful description of a dramaturg within the new play context. Alicia, what about for you? What are your thoughts about a sort of definition of a dramaturg?
Well, when I first started doing dramaturgy at UC Irvine, I was in the PhD program, and I also was mystified by the term, and I didn't know what it meant. So I talked to a colleague of mine, Sarita Rainey, who'd done her MFA in dramaturgy at UC San Diego, and she was really helpful to me. And she said she always liked to think about it as an outside expert pair of eyes. So for both the details, so researching specific things about a historical period, say, or also to help the director or playwright see the forest for the trees. So it helps me because there's kind of a duality about that response, being both inside and outside of a production, helping at a macro and a micro level. So I think each dramaturg sees their role slightly differently, but I think sometimes people can just really focus on the research part of it and forget that they can help with, say, the concept. For reminding a director when they're really stressed out towards the end of a production, what their main concept was. So it's useful to talk about the role from the very beginning.
I think you raised such a wonderful point, which is, a lot of times when we enter a room, not everyone is sure how to engage with a dramaturg. Like their dramaturg is sort of like a weird thing where, like some directors feel like that's my domain. Some actors don't know what they're supposed to do with this factual information they're receiving or getting presented with. So let's get started with some best practices. What are some ideal practices? And I'll start with my recommendation. My recommendation as a director is to get the dramaturg early in the process, not the day before rehearsal starts. Oh, I need some research. Having them early on in that design process, in that conception process, is such a powerful thing. Anybody else have anything?
Well, I just want to echo that, right? Ideally, we come in long in advance and are actually can be instrumental to helping the director conceive of their concept. And similarly can be really instrumental in helping a playwright at the development stage. I mean, early on in the development stage of their playwriting process as well. So yeah, get us in as early as you possibly can. I think that's really absolutely key. And I think it really helps, especially if you're working with collaborators who are less accustomed to working with a dramaturg, that the earlier we get in, that also allows us to provide some information to the production team members as early as possible as to what we can do for them, right? Like what are the things that we could offer them and bring to them that might be useful to their individual process as well.
Yeah, I love the opportunity to bring them in early and a guide of some sort to really help get everyone and thinking about the same questions early on. I think is really helpful. And I do think that it's just like bringing in. I'm going to go back to the designer connection. I think bringing in the designers very early in the process means that they get to be a voice at the table before things are too baked, if you will. It allows things early in the process to really kind of influence one another and really build a concept as a team.
So here's my question, right? For sort of as a production dramaturg on an established production, not a necessarily new play, what happens if the director and the source text conflict in their vision, right? Like what happens if there is that sort of conflict of, well, this was not the original intent and here's my new vision. How do we then align that when that does occur? Because it does happen from time to time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Probing questions. We ask probing questions. That's a great probing question too. I think that if it's a set text that's dated enough and out of copyright, then you encourage that director to go ahead and adapt that text. But yeah, I think it's that negotiation and that mediation between in that case, you're really trying to ask questions that help resolve what might be a conflict. And I think that really speaks to the value, though, of bringing us in really early into the process and at the stage of conception, so that any of those potential conflicts could be addressed and resolved early on rather than during the actual rehearsal process.
And in terms of like working with a playwright, can you talk a little bit about your experience, John, as a playwright working with a dramaturg? What that was like? Like, how is that different? And obviously, you have a director in that process, so perhaps how does that how do those three pillars work together?
Well, let me just speak about two specific experiences with the same company. There's a company that serves as a new play incubator in New York called The Skeleton Represents. And I've had two of my plays go through their salon series where they help a writer develop work and do a public presentation of the work. And for both of them, I worked with a dramaturg, Emily Claire Schmidt, who is also a playwright and screenwriter. And her process is just beautiful. She discusses the moments that really grabbed her attention. She asks questions. The word that she used that's been very helpful to me is engine. When she talks about what moves the play forward, what is the play's engine? And then from there, asks, it's a lot of questions, which get me to think about character arcs. So who's the A character, if you will? Who's the B character? Who's the C character? And how do these arcs come together? Especially in cases that are not necessarily, where the play's not necessarily strict realism. There still needs to be a story to follow. Still needs to be some arcs to follow. And for both plays, we had a bunch of meetings online leading up to the director taking over. And then the director for the first play was the artistic director, Ria DeLulo. And then the second one was Callie Casadine. And it was a very smooth transition then from dramaturg to director, because the director had already experienced the first version of the script and knew it was going to go through some development. And then we came back with the script a little more well-formed in preparation then just to move it towards the actors, to getting them ready, particularly because one reading was on Zoom. And then the other one was somewhat staged. It was outdoors in Brooklyn in a backyard with some basic costume pieces and actors somewhat off script, but still holding their scripts just for key moments and key lines. And it was an absolutely beautiful process, and very rewarding. And I think that, I like what everybody else says here, the key is to bring people in early, to bring dramaturgs in early as possible to get the script ready.
Great. Alicia, how about your experience working on the flip side? Like, what is it that you hope that perhaps a playwright brings to you when you're dramaturging a play?
Main thing to me is just a feeling of openness, of a willingness to experiment and play, to have fun. Some of my best memories of working on new play development is sitting at a cafe, especially with a new playwright, just hashing out ideas. I think there's such a public aspect to being a playwright, as opposed to say novelist or poet. Comes with a lot of pressure, and so especially when working one on one with somebody, there's an innate right to fail. I love when playwrights are willing to experiment with form, and not just kind of focus on realism. And think of me as like a sounding board, so that it's really low stakes, and we can work together. So that I'm really there to help them find or refine their voices. I'm not there to impose anything upon them.
I love all of that. We're going to take a quick commercial break and we'll talk about the ways that we can perhaps encourage American theater to use dramaturgs more, because there are so many questions around it. We'll be right back. Hey there, Josh Hsu here. If you've been enjoying our episodes and the stories we bring to life, there are a couple of easy ways that you can help us keep the fire burning. First, hit that subscribe button wherever you're listening so you never miss an episode. And if you want to take your support to the next level, You can buy us a coffee or even join our Patreon, helping us create more bold, design-forward, and innovative theater experiences. You'll find all the links on our website at forgetheaterlabs.com. Your support, whether it's a subscription, a donation, or just sharing the show with friends, makes a huge difference. Thanks for helping us forge ahead. At Forge Theater Labs, we want this podcast to be as collaborative as it was when we created it. That's where you come in. Have an idea for a future episode, a guest you'd love to hear from, or just thoughts on how we can make the show even better? Feel free to email us at info@forgetheaterlabs.com. Your voice shapes the stories we tell, so don't be shy. Let us know what you think. Welcome back. I'm Josh Hsu, and you're listening to Forge Theater Labs. Tonight, we're exploring the hell as a dramaturg. And with us, we have Dr. Joshua Segal, Andrew J. Henkes, John Patrick Bray, and Alicia Tycer to sort of explore how we integrate a dramaturg into a production and how we build a culture that encourages this throughout. Andrew, I know that you've had a lot of experience overseas, so I want to bring this to you first. You know, in Europe, it's pretty much given that you have a dramaturg. Can you talk a little bit about that sort of experience and how that maybe informs your approach?
Yeah, I mean, one of the big things that differentiates the theater culture in the United States from in Europe is the lack of public funding in the U.S. And so I think that that's really facilitated the building of a culture in many European countries that really prioritizes the type of work that a dramaturg does. So the work, I'm thinking about theater as something with deep cultural roots, and having bigger teams with more artistic voices at the table to collaborate on a production. And so I do think that that's really built a culture over time that really supports seeing the value of what a dramaturg can really bring to the table in a theater company.
So, you know, beyond sort of getting them involved, I think, you know, there is a sort of discussion of funding in the United States, especially with everything that's going on, with all the funding cuts that we've experienced through the NEA and beyond. You know, how do we, like, where is the place where we can say, you know, you theater, you should start, right? I'll give an example. You know, I am the festival co-director of Port Fringe, and one of the things that we did this year for our pop-up festival was to have a dramaturg on board to help the different artists who are creating their versions of Poe have a grounding, have a basis in that. You know, like where are ways that we can insert dramaturgy into whether traditional or non-traditional spaces so that, you know, we are always cognizant of that. There's always that presence within that. Any thoughts about that?
So I think that since some of us are academics, I think if we normalize having a dramaturg in the room in our directing classes, in our writing classes, and perhaps even in our scene study classes with performers, that it becomes second nature. Because a lot of folks who are interested in performing out in the world usually take at least a theater class in college, if not declare a major or minor. So I think if we demystify the process early in academic training and in theater training in general, that would be one way to say, hey, you know, we have a play going on, you know, whether it's a community theater, we have our director, we have volunteer cast, where's the dramaturg, right? It becomes just part of the process. And we just have to normalize it very early on in theatrical training. And that will take time. But I think if we start now, start here, that within, you know, a generation or two, dramaturgs will be, you know, given on any production, on any workshop.
Yeah, and I think that you raise a really great point, John, because as I think back to theater history courses that I've been involved with, I've either sat in, I've taught, you know, I don't know if we always, the lines that are always as clear as to, I think we tell all the actors sitting in those classes, hey, you know, you need to know theater history. I don't know if we always do, but when you take an acting class and you take a design class, it always goes back to the professional practice. And I wonder if that's something that we as academics could do, is more explicitly draw those lines in the theater literature courses and the history courses, the theory courses about how this actually does directly relate to a professional role.
Yeah. So at the university where I teach, at University of Louisville, I teach the theater history literature sequence, and the formerly script analysis class was collapsed into it when the curriculum was devised soon after I got there, which meant that it provided exactly that opportunity, right? So that the students are getting dramaturgical training in the theater history literature classes. And that provides me with an opportunity to introduce that concept. And I've had the opportunity to teach intro to dramaturgy in that class. And I also teach a class for MFA students who are performance MFA students in dramaturgy and script analysis. So it's really sort of been built into the curriculum, but where we still have issue is that we don't have a dramaturg on every production, because I'm the only dramaturg in the department, right? And I don't have the time. I can only work so many hours a day before I lose my mind to dramaturg all 5, the shows that we do in a given season, in addition to all of the other things I do. So while I'm in a room repeating this idea again and again that dramaturgy goes actually all the way back to the Greeks, and really you need to have one in the room all the time, we're actually not at the same time modeling that, and I think that's a disconnect. But to echo the point, absolutely. I mean, if we can provide this training, just as we make all students take design classes, we make in a general education theater arts program, they're all going to take their theater history courses, they're all going to take their acting classes. Shouldn't they all have to take a dramaturgy course?
I 100% agree. And we've been fortunate in our program right now at the University of Georgia to have a dramaturg named Sloan Garner, who is who either is or was the regional rep for the LMDA. And we had the opportunity to ask her, allow her to get her to teach our dramaturgy class for undergrads. So right now there is a really good dramaturgical ecosystem, both for the new plays that the student clubs are producing, as well as the productions we have through the department, through the UGA Theater. The hope is that this will continue being paid forward as we continue, because Sloan is now in her 3rd year. Doctoral students don't stay forever. So the hope is that that we just make this part of our culture, and again make it second nature. I love that you're introducing dramaturgy in all levels in your classes. I think that's fantastic, and should be the norm.
Yeah, we've introduced our program has tracks, so you can do a BA in theater or a Bachelor of Science in a particular track. And we just introduced Intro to Playwriting and Dramaturgy track. So that would allow someone to specialize, but it's only within that track that undergraduates have the opportunity to take a dramaturgy course that's only dramaturgy, not theater history, literature, and right. But the track is a start. It's a good start. On the right path.
So I love the idea of inserting that into academia too, but I wonder also if there is something, somebody mentioned community theater. Like imagine going to a community theater and their best practice is to have a dramaturg on board, right? Going to that small local theater that's a storefront in LA, they have a dramaturg, and encouraging that culture, obviously understanding that budget is a concern, but recognizing that that's kind of from the ground up, because we expect Broadway shows to have dramaturgs. We expect these large productions that have the resources to make that happen, to have those tools available to them. But we don't always have those tools available at the sort of lower levels, which is where we ascend to the higher levels, right? Like that's where we start. That's where that's where the majority of theater is done. I hate to say it around this nation, but that is where it is. That is where it lives. Andrew.
Yeah, and I think that in some of the other arts, we do a better job with this, having some sort of educational role in a lot of more visual art institutions, even at less those with smaller budgets, is a common practice because that's the person who's also really tasked with engaging the community with the artwork and getting them in the doors. And so I like what you're saying, Josh, because maybe there's an opportunity for us to learn from that model and think of the dramaturg. I think Janna mentioned earlier that this is, sort of the advocate for the audience. So could this be someone who, in part of that role in a smaller theater company, is also really liaising with ways that we're engaging with the community?
And just to piggyback off that, the notion of having someone who's an educational director, often they're doing dramaturgical work. And same thing with the literary manager. Often literary managers are doing that dramaturgical work as well, with finding a play, developing the play, hosting the talkback session, asking the right questions, whether they use, no shame model or the Liz Lerman critical response. So it's really a bunch of different hats, and sometimes just being able to codify that role, lit manager, educational director as dramaturg, could be a hugely helpful thing, just in terms of getting the word normalized in some theaters and some community theaters where perhaps it's still a mystery.
Well, thinking about smaller and community theaters, which is where we, definitely start off as dramaturgs, um, it strikes me how there usually isn't money in the budget for dramaturgs to be funded to work on shows. Um, and thinking back over my time as a dramaturg, I've dramaturged a lot of productions. I realize how often either it's an unpaid kind of situation or it's more like a stipend. Like we appreciate you, we think of you professionally, but we're still not able to pay as much as it would be if they were really looking at how much time and energy you put into the production. So I love talking with students and with interested young dramaturgs about the ideas of dramaturgy, about defining dramaturgy, the history, and then kind of inevitably the question comes up, well, how much are dramaturgs paid? And you can go on LMDA and you can look up the contracts and suggestions and all of that. But I often find that with that aspect, kind of stops me in my tracks a lot of times, and I talk with them about how it's often been, for me at least, who I'm a big fan of working with small theaters and with experimental theater groups, that oftentimes it hasn't, paid very well in at least the monetary sense. So I think that's because currently dramaturgs are seen as beneficial for production, especially in smaller community theater, but not necessary. So when there are the inevitable budget cuts or when budgets are being assessed, they're not often, paid to where I would want them to be paid. Um, and so I think that it's really worth thinking and talking about the economics of it, because that is so important whenever we're trying to recruit people, when we're trying to grow this profession, what I think of as a profession, and to keep aware for oneself how much time one spends, um, especially to also think about what I was defining as what a dramaturg does in the beginning, that I sometimes will remind directors a dramaturg does not have to be here for every rehearsal. We are not an assistant director, right? That is not our role. We also have a role outside to keep an outside eye on the production, to maintain our identities, our perspectives outside of the production that perhaps is a little harder to achieve if you're there at every rehearsal. So as much as I think we want to involve dramaturgs, we want to also respect their time, and respect their work.
Mhm. I think that in light of the various cuts in arts education that are happening, and will, at least for the next, 4 years, continue to happen, I think community theaters are a really important area for all theater artists to be tapping into. And if we follow Michael Mark Chemmers, who I'll cite forever because I love Michael Mark Chemmers, who wrote Ghost Light, which is a great dramaturgical book. And he talks about how the dramaturgical question is why this play at this time, why this play now at this place. And that's essentially the question of dramaturgy. And it's about community, right? It's about why is this play being done right now in this moment for this target audience, right? And community theater is a space where you can really dive into that question. And so it seems to me that that's actually a space that could critically use a dramaturg and could critically really invest in dramaturgy in order to expand its own reach and expand its own quality of what it produces and the effect that and impact it has on its given community. So I really think that all of us should be investing in community theater and not thinking about theater in these kind of hierarchies of Lord and et cetera, because that's a frontier that isn't reliant upon the same funding that the larger theaters are reliant upon, that is evaporating.
I will say, from a sort of perspective of getting to see some community theater here in Portland, Maine, that their production budgets blow some professional theaters out of the water.
Absolutely.
And it's incredible the resources that they have. They're not paying their actors because they're community members, but they are paying for those sets, those designs, so it is feasible for that team to be there to present their community in a positive or beautiful light, or a disturbing light in some cases. It would be probably not a big jump for them to invest in a dramaturg. And so community theaters in Maine, if you're listening right now, this is what I'm saying. Hire me as a dramaturg. No, but that is a really fundamental question, is how do we encourage, at the community level, obviously smaller theaters are going to have smaller budgets, so they might do double roles at points. And so they might pay them in double, but as long as we have that element, right? I like to think of it as, when I'm a director, that the dramaturg there is there to keep me in check. That is why I always advocate for it, because I don't want to assume that my singular vision is correct, or there has to be a multiplicity of vision, whether that be designers, directors, actors. That is sort of at the heart of what we do. It's a collaborative process, and we have those checks so that we never present something, right, at least that might offend the audience or take us in a direction that we may not want to go in. So,
unless, of course, the goal is to offend the audience. I'm thinking about, some of your productions, Josh, and about Brecht and political theater. And
I would never, Alicia. Never. Not a single work I've ever done. I don't know what you're talking about. Weird. Thank you so much. We're going to go ahead and go to a commercial break, and we'll sort of close up with some closing thoughts. Something that we can think about as we head into this sort of final chunk for me is there a way that we can sort of encourage local dramaturgs to come to the surface? Is there a way that we can produce a space in which they can develop their work, that they're not isolated alone and only called upon when they need to be pulled out of the cupboard to figure out why, I don't know, some playwright said this. In any case, we'll be right back. You've been listening to Forge Theater Labs. I'm Josh Hsu. Want to get your brand in front of a passionate, creative, and engaged audience? Forge Theater Labs is looking for partners to sponsor this podcast and join us in bringing bold, innovative theater to life. If you'd like to place an ad right here, reach out to us at marketing@forgetheaterlabs.com. It's a simple, powerful way to support the arts while sharing your message with listeners who care about creativity and community. Again, that's marketing@forgetheaterlabs.com. Let's build something extraordinary together. Welcome back. I'm Josh Hsu, and you're listening to Forge Theater Labs. We're going to continue our conversation about dramaturgy and how we sort of invite it into that theater space, at the higher education level, at the community level. But that raised a question for me during the break, which is, how early should we start with dramaturgy? Andrew, your thoughts?
Yeah, I was reflecting during the last conversation about California Proposition 28, which in 2022 guaranteed a certain level of funding for arts education at the primary and secondary levels. And I thought, well, gosh, I mean, isn't that an exciting opportunity? When we think about arts education, we get really focused on the idea of people practicing the art. So that means playing a musical instrument. It means getting up and dancing, and all of, drawing, painting. That's all exciting stuff and good. But there doesn't seem to be quite the opportunity for young people to practice or even learn about some of the other practices that go into artistic production at different levels. And so can we imagine that maybe we go into, a dramaturg or a theater company can engage a local high school and talk about career paths, and including dramaturgs? What if we could get a young student who loves their English class or loves some other literary language course and realizes that there's a really exciting career to apply their passion for the word, for the written word, for storytelling, in a way that doesn't require them to get up on stage. So I think maybe there are ways we could be creative, and maybe if we want to create a pipeline of great talent into dramaturgy, then maybe we need to start sooner. Maybe there's an opportunity to present those pathways the same way we might talk about being an astronaut or or an accountant.
I love that idea. One of the things that I struggled with postgraduate or post college too was sort of finding those early opportunities as a dramaturg or as a director. Like, where does someone like that begin beyond going back to academia, right? Like, are there sort of workshops, are there resources out there that we could be sort of providing people? Any thoughts about that?
Well, I got to do the plug for the Literary Managers and Dramaturgs of the Americas, LMDA. Everyone who is not yet a member should be a member. And they, if you're a member, you can, put your information out and network there. Also, the New Play Exchange now also has dramaturgy pages, so you can do a dramaturgical profile on NPX, which is really fantastic as well. And I mean, I've talked to a lot of people who, somebody put me in touch with somebody or recommended my name to somebody who was interested in dramaturgy and wanted to know. And I always make myself available for those Zoom sessions, or to have Zoom sessions with people who are just interested, high school age, undergraduate age, postgraduate age, whatever it is. Just because I think so much of it too, it is a one-on-one conversation, right? It is about opening up a dialogue, and creating an opportunity for people to ask questions and also to get to know what their interests are in the field, like what draws them into dramaturgy as a potential field as well. So yeah, anyone who wants to give my name out, I'm happy to talk about dramaturgy with anyone who's excited about it. I'm like, yeah, I'll talk to you. I'll convert you. Sure.
And John, as a sort of like the new playwright, like, like your interest is in new plays, right? Like, is there a specific focus that you would have them do if they were interested in new play dramaturgy, which is, of course, its own subset?
Golly, I'm not sure if I'm going to effectively answer your question, mostly because I started forming another idea. So I self-produced a play of mine in Georgia about a month ago at a community theater space, and half the people involved were from the community, the other half were from UGA. The director is a community member, and so when I brought on my dramaturg, who was my doctoral student Sloan, the question was, so what does Sloan do? And I think that through that process, now Sloan is also an intimacy coordinator, and so again, wore different hats. But through that process, a lot of folks were just saw that she would show up, that she was invited to give notes during different parts of rehearsal. And so I think that just introducing dramaturgs at a community theater level could be a really strong thing. I mean, perhaps you can even, if you have a community theater, if you run a community theater, perhaps just put up a flare and say, are the dramaturgs around? What does a dramaturg do? And maybe have, like, on a dark night, just a conversation with people who are involved in the theater and see, oh, this is maybe something I can get involved with. Or, I have a passion for history. I have a passion for literature. Maybe this is something I can try as well. Along with, of course, LMDA and some of the organizations that were mentioned. So get back. What your question was about from the new play side? I'm sorry, I just want to make sure I
Sure,
answer that
absolutely.
too.
From the new play side, like, are there sort of, right, how would you encourage a young dramaturg to perhaps, pursue that pathway if they're interested in new play dramaturgy? Like, is it
Oh, I would say go to theaters and spaces where new plays are being produced. Go to new play incubators. If there's new play incubators, some places that specialize in readings or workshops, or if there's like a reading festival that's on the horizon, go and introduce yourself to the company and say, "Hello, I'm a budding dramaturg, and I would love to get involved in some capacity." And from there, you can explain, if they're not sure what a dramaturg is, the various hats a dramaturg could wear, from being in the literary office, from educational, from talkback, and to also working one-on-one with playwrights who might be part of the festival. And see if there's somebody, like, sometimes they have a bunch of 10 minutes and sometimes they have a couple of longer plays. Maybe somebody who's written a longer play, if that's somebody who wants to be paired with the dramaturg. So I would say, just like you would for any other creative living in an area, go to the theaters around you and see what kind of work is being done, and see how you can get plugged in. There's a lot of new work being produced now at the community theater level, which is fantastic. So I think it's easier now. I would argue it's easier now to go and introduce yourself than it would have been even 25 years ago.
I'm also thinking about kind of how young we can start to think of the dramaturg in another sense. About, my daughter's starting up theater now. She's going to theater camp, and these kids, they're talking about theater, and they're, making dramaturgical comments all the time. They're being creative. They're thinking out of the box. They're really challenging each other with, questions, probing questions and critiques. Now, we may not pay them for it exactly, but I think that they're very active in the field.
Wait, people get paid for this?
I mean, you know what? Your question, makes me wonder, think back upon, like, what are the things that I'd like to do as a kid that were really dramaturgical, right? And, you know, it- we couldn't really afford babysitting or camp. So we watched a lot of TV in the summer, right? And we would watch these soap operas. And my brother and I both were really active in trying to predict what would happen next. And I was always right. I was always right. Why was I always right? Because I was had a really good understanding of storytelling. And they're not complex stories anyway. But, when you're like 9 and you figured out the whole summer season of Days of Our Lives, you're clearly ahead of the curve, right? So, I'm not suggesting that children should necessarily be watching daytime soaps, although why not? But thinking about the things that we did as children that may have prepped us to go into this field, and maybe how do we cultivate that among younger generations ourselves in ways that are affordable? Because watching the soap opera at home was affordable, which is primarily why I was doing it.
I feel that is something that I also share in common. I watched a lot of TV as a kid. Like, my parents were like, if it's a cartoon, you can watch it. And so I watched a lot of stuff that maybe I shouldn't have as a kid, but I still sort of adore that. I joke with my wife all the time because we watch movies together, and I try not to like say anything, but like afterwards I'll be like, oh, I totally saw that coming. And she's like, yeah, you did. Sure you did. Sure you did. Like, especially with like, jump scares, all this. I saw that coming. But like, I do think that is something that is unique to like a catchphrase that a dramaturg has, right? Like, oh, I saw that coming. Or, I knew that was going to happen before it happened. Like, what are sort of common phrases, just to sort of end things on a light and fun note, that you find as a dramaturg, you find yourself saying over and over again? Like, what's your catchphrase, so to speak? We'll start with John. Any catchphrases?
Oh, catchphrases. I think mostly. So a friend of mine pointed out to me recently that I have what she calls resting clown face, because I make a lot of expressions And so for me, it's mostly like a big eye and a nod, followed by good, okay, good. And so somebody got a picture of me when I was surprised at something that somebody did in a script. And I put it on my Facebook somewhere. I'm just, big eyes, big mouth. So I think that if my eyes get really big and I nod and say, good, okay, good, that means we're on to something.
Andrew, what about you?
Big eyes, big mouth, big dreams, right? Big ideas. I think for me, I would probably say a catchphrase something like, well, let's find out. I think sometimes there are questions that get raised, and we sometimes we might just imagine that there's no way of knowing, and I think that there's a lot more we can get a good guess at by doing research than people might immediately assume.
Amazing. Alicia?
Think that I've never been told that I have a catchphrase. I can't really think of a specific catchphrase for myself, but I've definitely been told that I have no poker face. So I think that I'm watching something and I'm just, keeping it together and nobody can see or observe what I'm thinking inside of my head. And I've definitely been told that it's just all over my face. And everybody can tell what I think of a show or production or, if I'm on stage, it's say in talkbacks, things like that.
Janna, anything you find yourself saying a lot?
Well, I've been told there's something I say and there's something I've been told I say a lot. So I've been told that I say a lot. Oh, that's really intriguing, and people have told me that they think that that's kind of like a backhanded insult, and that's it. Like, no, I really mean it. Like, it's really intriguing. So when I've been told that that they're taking that so that it's being received as like, oh, well, then you must not like it. And I'm like, no, I mean it. Like, I'm really intrigued. That's a good thing. It's positive. Yeah. So I guess that's that. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think it's always like the exclamation, the question, right? We like that's something at the heart of everything is that we always end with a question. Like, what is that question? Let's find out, resting clown face, right? Like that surprise, like what was that about? Like, I think there's always something there. Alicia, you were about to sort of jump into.
Now, Janna, if they say that it's problematic, then they'll know they're in trouble.
And on that note, I think we'll call it a night. Thank you so much all for joining us. I'm really excited to see where we can sort of take these ideas at Forge Theater Labs, and we really appreciate the feedback and the thoughts that you have. I'm Josh Hsu. You've been listening to Forge Theater Labs and our Dramaturgy Roundtable. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next episode.
Forge Theater Labs is produced by Josh Hsu, audio production by Sam Rappaport, intro drum beat by Dave Register, incidental music by Super Order, and closing music by Corey Melanson.